Every public space you enter is not just a room, it is a stage. And on this stage, you are being judged by an audience that never sleeps. Most people, the 99%, walk into these arenas completely blind. They believe that as long as they are being themselves, they are safe. But in the world of power, being yourself is the fastest way to become a target. Robert Greene teaches us that reputation is the cornerstone of power. Once it is cracked, you are defenseless. Today, I am going to reveal the 7 invisible lines that you must never cross when the eyes of the world are upon you. If you cross them, you lose your leverage, your mystery, and ultimately, your respect. We will look at these through the lens of a man named Elias, whose rise and sudden fall will show you exactly how the public eye can either crown you or crush you. The air in the gala hall was thick, with the scent of expensive perfume and the quiet hum of high-stakes ambition. Elias stood at the center of a small circle of influential figures, his glass of water reflecting the chandelier light. To the casual observer, he looked successful. He had the right suit, the right posture, and the right smile. But Elias was about to commit the first cardinal sin of the public stage. He was talking too much. He had just secured a major contract, a move that would put him years ahead of his competitors. Instead of letting the results speak for themselves, he felt the desperate need to explain the how and the why. He began detailing his future plans, his hidden strategies, and the clever ways he had outmaneuvered his rivals. As he spoke, the energy in the room shifted. He didn't notice the subtle narrowing of eyes or the way a veteran investor named Marcus stepped back slightly. By explaining his brilliance, Elias was actually doing 2 dangerous things. He was making himself predictable, and he was feeding the envy of the room. When you reveal your next move in public, you are handing your enemies a map of your vulnerabilities. Power thrives on mystery. The moment you explain your magic trick, the audience no longer admires you. They start looking for the flaws in your performance. Elias thought he was projecting strength, but he was actually bleeding his life force into the carpet. The first rule you must internalize is that in public, silence is your greatest shield. The more you say, the more common you appear, and the less in control you seem. Even if you say something banal, if you make it vague and open-ended, you appear powerful and sphinx-like. Elias, in his excitement, had become a shallow digger. He was throwing all his gold onto the table, leaving nothing for the imagination. As Marcus watched from the shadows, he whispered to an associate, "A man who tells you everything he's going to do is a man who will never have the chance to do it." As the evening progressed, the second mistake began to manifest. A waiter, moving too quickly through the crowd, bumped into Elias, spilling a few drops of red wine onto his pristine white shirt. It was a minor accident, something that could be handled with a simple gesture and a trip to the restroom. But Elias felt the sting of public embarrassment. He felt the eyes of the influential people around him. Instead of maintaining his predatory calm, he snapped. He didn't scream, but his voice was sharp, laced with a cold, condescending arrogance. He lectured the young man on paying attention and professionalism. In that 5-second outburst, Elias lost more power than if he had lost $1 million. The crowd didn't see a powerful man standing up for himself. They saw a man who was a slave to his emotions. If a few drops of wine can shatter your composure, how can you be trusted to handle a crisis of state or a multi-million-dollar merger? Public displays of anger or frustration are like a leak in a dam. Once people see that you can be pushed into a reaction, they will spend the rest of your career looking for the button that triggers you. To the strategist, an emotional man is a programmable man. By reacting to the waiter, Elias signaled to every predator in the room that his ego was fragile and easily manipulated. Marcus, observing this from the bar, shook his head. He knew that the hallmark of a true master is the ability to remain formless and unshakable. If Elias had smiled, made a joke, or simply ignored the spill, he would have appeared untouchable, as if the world's small inconveniences were beneath his notice. That is the aura of the 1%. They do not react to the noise. They are the mountain that the wind blows against. Elias, however, had let the wind move him. He had shown the world that he was small enough to be bothered by a waiter. But the descent didn't stop there. Seeking to recover his image after the outburst, Elias moved to a different corner of the room where a well-known industry critic was holding court. This critic was known for his sharp tongue and his ability to dismantle reputations with a single tweet. Elias, wanting to prove he was above it all and intellectually superior, began to engage in a public debate with him. He started criticizing the current trends of the industry, mocking the leadership of rival firms, and questioning the morality of certain common business practices. He thought he was being authentic and bold. He thought he was showing the world that he had high standards and a sharp mind. In reality, he was committing the third great sin: public complaining and moralizing. When you criticize others or complain about the state of things in a public forum, you appear bitter and weak. It suggests that you are a victim of the circumstances you are complaining about. Moreover, by attacking powerful institutions or people openly, you are painting a target on your own back without having the defense to back it up. Robert Greene's 38th law is clear. Think as you like, but behave like others. If you want to change the world, you do it from a position of absolute power, not by shouting from the sidelines. Elias was creating enemies he didn't even know existed. Every person in that room who had a connection to the firms he was mocking now had a reason to see him fail. Power is a game of alliances, and Elias was burning bridges before he had even crossed them. He was so focused on being right that he forgot to be strategic. He was playing the role of the rebel, but the world doesn't reward rebels until they have already won. Until then, they are just seen as nuisances. As the night wore on, the weight of his errors began to settle on his shoulders, though he was still too blind to see the full extent of the damage. He had talked too much, he had lost his temper, and he had been unnecessarily critical. He was no longer the mysterious rising star of the beginning of the night. He was becoming a known quantity, and in the game of power, being a known quantity is the beginning of the end. The social chill in the room was now palpable, though Elias tried to mask his growing unease with a forced, radiating confidence. He could feel the eyes of the room's true architects, the men and women who moved the pieces on the board, drifting away from him. To the amateur, the natural instinct in this moment is to chase that disappearing attention. This is where Elias fell into the fourth trap, the desperate hunger for public validation. He began to humble brag, a psychological maneuver that is as transparent as glass to anyone with a modicum of strategic insight. He started showing a small group of associates a video on his phone of his new private estate, framing the luxury as a logistical nightmare he was forced to deal with. In the high-stakes theater of reputation, showing off is a confession of insignificance. When you go out of your way to display your wealth, your connections, or your intelligence in a public setting, you are shouting to the world that you are not used to having these things. You are signaling that you are a newcomer to power, still dazzled by your own reflection. The elite do not need to prove their status. Their status is an atmosphere they carry with them. By seeking the oohs and ahs of minor players, Elias was effectively demoting himself. He was trading his long-term mystery for a 5-second hit of dopamine. Robert Greene's 9th law tells us to win through your actions, never through argument. Showing off is the weakest form of argument. It is an attempt to convince others of your worth because you don't believe it is self-evident. Marcus, still observing from a distance, saw Elias's frantic attempts to regain his footing. He saw the way Elias's eyes scanned the faces of his listeners, looking for that nod of approval, that spark of envy. Marcus knew that a man who hungers for public validation is a man who can be easily led. All you have to do is feed his ego, and he will walk right into your trap. Elias was no longer a threat. He was a toy, emboldened by the polite smiles of the sycophants around him. Elias then committed the fifth and perhaps most dangerous error, the violation of the law of distance. He saw Marcus standing alone by the tall windows overlooking the city, and decided this was his moment to secure a powerful ally. But instead of approaching with the measured, respectful caution that a junior strategist should show a veteran, Elias walked up with a wide, casual gait. He breached Marcus's personal space, standing far too close, and in a move that sent a shiver through the room, he placed a familiar hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Marcus, my friend," Elias said, his voice a bit too loud for the quiet corner, "I think we're the only two people in this room who actually understand how the game is played, don't you? This over-familiarity is a cardinal sin in the public eye. When you treat a superior or even a stranger of influence with casual intimacy in front of others, you are not showing that you are equal. You are showing that you lack the discipline to recognize boundaries. In a public setting, hierarchy is the invisible skeleton that holds society together. By ignoring it, Elias wasn't being bold. He was being offensive. He was trying to borrow Marcus's status by association, a parasitic move that every master recognizes and detests. Marcus didn't pull away immediately. He looked down at the hand on his shoulder, as if it were a strange insect that had landed there by mistake. The silence that followed was heavy and cold. Slowly, Marcus stepped back, letting Elias's hand fall into the empty air. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. The message was sent to everyone watching. This man is not my peer. He is an intruder. The sixth mistake was born from Elias's sudden realization that he had crossed a line. Panic is a loud emotion, and in public, it is a death sentence. Instead of making a graceful exit or falling into a dignified silence, Elias tried to fill the air. He began to make self-deprecating jokes, trying to play off his awkwardness as being a bit tipsy or just having a long day. This is the trap of public vulnerability. Modern culture tells us that vulnerability is a strength, but in the dark corridors of power, vulnerability is simply blood in the water. When you admit to your mistakes, your insecurities, or your lack of control in a public forum, you are giving people the weapons they will eventually use to destroy you. You are handing out free ammunition. Elias thought he was being relatable and human. In reality, he was stripping away the last of his armor. He was showing the world that he could be rattled, that he was unsure of himself, and that his power was a thin mask that could be torn off by a single cold look from a man like Marcus. Robert Greene's 25th law advises us to recreate yourself. Part of that recreation is maintaining a public persona that is consistent and unshakable. If you must be vulnerable, you do it behind closed doors, with a single person you trust with your life. And even then, you be careful. In public, your face must be a mask of bronze. Elias's mask was melting, and everyone could see the frightened boy underneath. He was now committing the final stage of public suicide. He was looking for pity. Marcus watched as Elias drifted from group to group, his stories becoming more erratic, his laugh a bit too high-pitched. The man who had entered the room as a potential titan was leaving it as a court jester. He had violated the sacred nature of the public stage. He had forgotten that in the presence of others, you are not a person, you are a symbol, and a symbol that cracks, a symbol that begs, a symbol that bleeds, is a symbol that no one will ever follow again. As the gala began to wind down, the seventh and final error was about to be cemented into Elias's legacy. It wasn't an action, but a lack of one. It was the failure to know when to leave. Elias stayed until the very end, long after the important guests had departed, long after the energy had left the room. He was still there, leaning against the bar, talking to the janitorial staff, trying to cling to the last remnants of the stage. In public, your absence is often more powerful than your presence. Law 16 of the 48 Laws of Power states, use absence to increase respect and honor. The more you are seen and heard from, the more common you appear. By lingering, Elias made himself cheap. He became part of the furniture. He had stayed long enough for everyone to see the full arc of his collapse. If he had left early, right after his initial success, the wine spill and the Marcus incident might have been seen as minor glitches. But by staying, he allowed the public to witness his total disintegration. He had become a ghost haunting his own funeral. The morning after the gala, the world looked exactly the same to Elias, but it had fundamentally changed. He woke up with the phantom weight of his own words pressing down on his chest. In the quiet of his apartment, the authenticity he thought he had displayed felt like a naked exposure. This is the first psychological consequence of public failure, the realization that you have surrendered your formlessness. Robert Greene's 48th. Law is to assume formlessness. By being adaptable and keeping your true self hidden, you remain a moving target. But by the time Elias had finished his third drink and his fifth story the night before, he had become a static monument of his own flaws. He had given the world a finished portrait of himself. And it was not a masterpiece. It was a caricature. Elias checked his phone, expecting a flurry of messages from the investors he had impressed with his future plans. Instead, there was a deafening silence. This silence is the most brutal weapon of the elite. When you violate the laws of public conduct, people do not always confront you. They do not tell you that you were too loud, too familiar, or too vulnerable. They simply stop including you. They stop returning your calls. They edit you out of the social script. In the game of power, being ignored is far worse than being hated. Hatred implies that you are still a threat. Silence implies that you are irrelevant. As the days turned into weeks, Elias began to see the law of contagion in full effect. Robert Greene's 10th law warns us to avoid the unhappy and unlucky. In the eyes of the public, Elias had become unlucky. He had become the man who couldn't hold his wine, the man who couldn't respect boundaries, and the man who talked too much. Because reputation is a social construct, it is contagious. If an influential person is seen with a man whose reputation is cracked, their own reputation begins to leak. One by one, Elias's allies, those who had smiled at his humble brags just days before, began to distance themselves. They didn't want the stain of his public collapse to rub off on them. This is the dark reality of the one thing we discussed earlier. If your one thing is your reputation, and you treat it with the carelessness of an amateur, you are effectively committing social suicide. The public is a fickle beast. It loves to watch a rise, but it salivates at a fall. By being so visible and so flawed, Elias had provided the entertainment for the week. He had become a cautionary tale whispered in the very rooms where he once hoped to rule. He tried to fix it. This was his next strategic error. He began sending long explanatory emails to Marcus and the other board members. He apologized for the misunderstanding at the gala. He tried to justify his outburst at the waiter by claiming he was under a lot of stress. This is the 8th thing you should never do in public, though it often happens in the aftermath. Never explain, never complain. When you explain your mistakes in public, you are simply highlighting them again. You are dragging the mistake back into the light when it might have naturally faded into the shadows. An apology in the world of power is often seen as a confirmation of guilt and a sign of weakness. It gives your enemies a formal record of your failure. Marcus, receiving the email, didn't even read past the first paragraph. To a master of strategy, an explanation is just more noise. Marcus knew that if Elias were truly powerful, he wouldn't need to explain anything. He would simply let his next great action overwrite his previous mistake. But Elias was still chasing validation. He was still trying to argue his way back into favor. He had forgotten that you cannot talk your way out of a hole that you talked yourself into. The psychology of the public is such that they judge you based on the peak end rule they remember the most. Intense moment of an interaction and the way it ended. For Elias, the peak was his emotional outburst at the waiter, and the end was his desperate, lingering presence at the bar. Everything else, his genuine business success, his intelligence, his hard work, was buried under those two intense negative memories. He had failed to manage the theater of his life. He had treated the gala as a place to be himself, forgetting that the public square is a place where you must be a character. Robert Greene often points to the historical figures who mastered this. They understood that their public persona was a tool, a piece of equipment they put on before stepping out the door. They didn't view a wine spill as a personal insult. They viewed it as a prop in a play. They would have used that prop to demonstrate grace, humor, or total indifference, all qualities that project power. They knew that the public is not your friend, your therapist, or your family. The public is a judge who only has access to the evidence you provide. If you provide evidence of a fragile ego, that is the verdict you will receive. Elias began to feel the predator's gaze from the other side. Now he was the zebra with the limp. He noticed that in business meetings, people were more aggressive with him. They pushed for harder terms. They interrupted him more frequently. They had sensed that his inner fortress was compromised. Once the public sees that you can be rattled, they will never stop rattling you. They want to see if the cracks go all the way to the core. This is why predatory calm is so essential. It isn't just about looking cool. It's about signaling to the world that you are an expensive target. You are someone who cannot be easily disturbed, and therefore someone who is dangerous to cross. By violating the 7 rules of public conduct, Elias had essentially lowered his price. He had made himself common, and in the economy of power, anything that is common is cheap. The 99% are common because they react to everything. They laugh at every joke, they get angry at every slight, and they share every thought. They are like an open book that has already been read 1,000 times. The 1%, the masters, are like a rare manuscript kept under lock and key. You only get to see a few pages, and even then you have to earn the right to look. Elias's fall wasn't a sudden explosion. It was a slow, agonizing leak. He watched as the contract he had been so proud of, the one he had bragged about, was quietly renegotiated and then cancelled. The firm didn't want to be associated with someone who was becoming a liability. His public behavior had overwritten his professional competence. This is the hardest lesson for the 99% to learn. Skill is not enough. You can be the most talented person in the room, but if your public presence is erratic, you will be bypassed for someone who is less talented but more stable. Stability is a form of power. It creates a sense of reliability that people are willing to pay a premium for. As Elias sat in a small cafe weeks later, watching the world go by, he saw a young man at a nearby table. The young man was loud. He was showing his friends something on his phone with a desperate need for approval, and he was complaining about his boss. Elias saw his own ghost in that young man. He wanted to walk over and tell him, "Stop. You are killing your future. You are giving away your secrets for the price of a few laughs." But he knew the young man wouldn't listen. Like the 99%, the young man believed that his public actions were just life. He didn't realize he was on a stage. He didn't realize that the world was taking notes. Elias sat in that cafe for a long time, watching the sun dip below the horizon, casting long, predatory shadows across the pavement. He realized that his fall wasn't just a series of bad luck. It was a series of bad choices. He had treated the world like a friend when he should have treated it like a mirror. But Robert Greene's philosophy is not just about identifying the fall. It is about the mechanics of the rise. If you have already made these mistakes, if you have already talked too much, stayed too long, or shown your wounds to the wolves, there is a way back, but it is not through more words. The solution to a ruined public image is a strategic total disappearance. Elias stopped going to the galas. He stopped sending the explanatory emails. He deleted his social media presence. He became a ghost. This is the great retreat. By vanishing, you stop providing the public with new evidence of your flaws. You allow the law of fading memories to take over. People's attention spans are short. If you stop feeding the fire, it eventually burns out. During this period of silence, Elias didn't just hide. He rebuilt. He went back to the one thing he was actually good at, his craft. He worked in total isolation, sharpening his skills until they were no longer just good, but undeniable. When he finally re-emerged 6 months later, he was a different man. He didn't come back with a speech or an apology. He came back with a massive, successful project that benefited the very people who had shunned him. He didn't mention the gala. He didn't mention the wine spill or Marcus. He acted as if those events had happened to a different person in a different life. This is the power of the masterful action. A single, high-impact success can overwrite 1,000 minor public errors. But this only works if you have the discipline to stay silent until the results are ready. The lesson here is profound. The 99% believe that they are the center of the world, and they feel the need to broadcast every detail of their existence to prove they are alive. They are slaves to the immediate reaction of the crowd. But the 1% understand that they are the architects of their own legend. They treat the public square with the same reverence and caution that a soldier treats a minefield. They know that every word spoken in public is a potential liability, and every emotion shown is a potential weakness. They choose to be dense, mysterious, and unshakable. To master the public stage, you must commit to a new way of existing. When you step out of your door, you are no longer the person who feels tired, insecure, or excited. You are the strategist. You speak only when necessary, and even then you say less than required. You keep your successes to yourself until they are so large they cannot be ignored. You treat everyone with a polite, measured distance, never allowing the lines of hierarchy to blur. You handle the accidents of life with a predatory calm, showing the world that nothing is large enough to move you from your center. And most importantly, you know when the performance is over. You leave while the audience still wants more, ensuring that your absence creates a vacuum of respect. Elias eventually regained his seat at the table, but he never put his hand on a shoulder again. He never bragged about a contract. He became the quietest man in the room. And because of that, he became the most powerful. People began to fear his silence more than they had ever mocked his noise. They realized that they didn't know what he was thinking, what he was planning, or where his boundaries were. He had become formless. He had become a master. The world is watching you right now. Whether you are at a coffee shop, in a boardroom, or posting a comment online, you are building your reputation. You are either adding a brick to your fortress, or you are taking one away. The choice is yours. Will you continue to be an open book that anyone can rip the pages out of, or will you become the mystery that everyone wants to solve, but no one can touch? Now, I want you to think back to the last time you were in a public setting. What is the one thing you did or said that you now realize was a mistake? Was it a brag, an emotional reaction, or staying a bit too long? Tell me in the comments below. Admitting it here, in this community of strategists, is the first step toward building your own inner fortress. We learn from our errors so we never have to repeat them. If you found value in this breakdown of Robert Greene's laws of public conduct, make sure to hit the like button. It tells the algorithm that this is the kind of high-density information that the world needs to see. And if you are ready to stop being part of the 99% and start mastering the dark laws of human nature, subscribe to the channel. We don't just talk about power here, we study the mechanics of it. Don't let the noise of the world dictate your worth. Master the stage, protect your reputation, and become undeniable.